Witchcraft has been a word to cause fear in the minds of many since the beginning of time. Witchcraft is thought to be when a person sells their soul to Satan or complies with the devil. In 1641, an English law was set in place, making witchcraft a crime. In 1688, in the small town of Salem, the attitude and behavior of some began to become questionable. The first people to be accused of witchcraft were Goody Glover and Martha Goodwin. Goody soon started displaying odd behavior, and soon after, Goody's younger brother and two sisters started displaying similar behaviors. She was then arrested for bewitching the children. Reverend Cotton Mather met with her twice to have her repent her witchcraft. When she would not, she was later hanged. As for Martha, he took her in, but her bizarre behavior continued. In November 1689, Samuel Parris was named the new minister of Salem. He then moved from Boston to Salem. The townspeople didn't like him. They vowed to drive him out of town. They even stopped contributing to his slavery. On January 20th, 1692, more witches arose. This time it was 11-year-old Abigail Williams and 9-year-old Elizabeth Parris. They started acting similar to the Goodwin children. Soon there were more girls with strange behavior. Dr. Griggs began taking care of these girls. When it came to the point that many young girls were inflicted, he suggested that witchcraft could be the source. By this time, it was February 25th of 1692, and Tituba, an accused lady, baked what's called a witch cake because of the request given to her by her neighbor, Mary Sibley. This cake is not like any normal cake, as it contains the urine of the afflicted. Once Tituba had finished it, it was fed to a dog. At the words of an English folk remedy, the cake would counteract the spell. But why a dog? The dog was believed to be the friend of the devil. In late February of 1692, the afflicted girl named Elizabeth was pressured to say who cursed her, at which she explained Tituba. Also accused were Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne. By February 29th, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne were arrested. It was now March 1st. Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tituba are examined by John Hawthorne. Tituba confesses to practicing witchcraft. She also confesses to confirm Good and Osborne also practice witchcraft.
When accused and asked to repent her witchcraft, Sarah Good would not. She declared at her hanging, "I am no more a witch than you a wizard, and if you take away my life, God will give you blood to drink." The man who had set up her hanging later died 25 years later of a hemorrhage, choking on his own blood.
On March 11th, Ann Putnam Jr. showed similar signs of being afflicted. Included with this, others were said to be afflicted, including Mary Lewis, Mary Walcott, and Mary Warren. The next day, Ann claimed that Mary Corey was the source of her odd behavior. On the 21st, Hawthorne and Corwin examined Martha. On the 23rd, Samuel Browbook arrested a young girl of only age 4 for witchcraft. Her name was Dorcas Good. The 24th rolled around, and Carwin and Hawthorne examined Rebecca Nurse. 2 days later, Dorcas was interrogated. A mere 2 days later, another witch had risen. Her name was Elizabeth Proctor. On April 3rd, Sarah Cloyce defended Rebecca. After she does this, someone exclaimed that she was a witch. On April 11th, Hawthorne and Corwin examined Sarah and Elizabeth. Elizabeth's husband, John, was also accused of being a witch. He was then put in prison. A servant of the Proctors and accuser admits to lying and blames the other girls as well, saying they lied. However, April 13th came, and Ann Putnam accused Giles Corey of witchcraft. This kept coming along. But who was a witch and why? Usually, witches caused harm to humans or animals. Witches were usually claimed to be the fault of men's lack of ability to prosper. Witches were also feared, not only because they had powers, but because they worked with the devil. To villagers, witches were real, but Salem was small, and those who were accused were usually people high on drugs. so believing your best friend was a witch was pretty strange. European people brought the idea of witches, but they also brought their own thoughts on who was a witch. Most said witches were female. A written description in Cotton Mather's book, every old woman whose temper with her sight is not immediately good. However, of the 54 people accused, not all were old and ugly. It seemed that there is a witch. She was middle-aged or older. Common relation towards witchcraft is property. A New England law clearly specifies that the male families were to inherit the land, because, due to the fact that some so-called witches had no brothers, the women inherited the land and were more likely to be accused. Some of those who were accused tried to convince themselves they were witches because there seemed to be no other answer. They told themselves they did have the marks, and they were in the thoughts of the girls who were accused, so they were obviously witches. However, those who accused told themselves that the one they accused was a witch. After all, it may have been a friend or a neighbor that seemed to be behind the witchcraft that was placed on somebody. Now in Salem, the event has affected the towns in more ways than one. One way the Salem witch trials affected Salem was because it became a major attraction. People are fascinated with how the trial came to be, how people were killed, and why witchcraft was believed to be the source. The events in Salem have become memorable historical events that we, as Americans, can never forget. Although in Salem in the year 1692 seemed to be filled with witchcraft, scientists nowadays believe it might have actually been a grudge, prank gone wrong that nobody ever fessed up doing, or perhaps a food poisoning that came from rat. Supporting the idea of food poisoning was the fact that it was a particularly wet summer and completely dry the next time around. The food poisoning also causes similar symptoms to those that were supposedly cursed: muscle spasms, seizures, hallucinations as well. Adding on to this theory was the fact that most of the afflicted girls lived near marshes. Was it a prank gone wrong, grudge, or food poisoning? Or is it possible that witchcraft could be real? Now, although we would not say this possibility is likely, just since the fact that scientists could never find an exact reason, that it's something that you might want to consider. Perhaps witches have gone into hiding after the event blew up all over the nation, all over the world. We leave this decision to you.